Well, I don't know how to say this, so I'll let Robert Downey Jr. say it.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
So it's come to my attention that the Canadian Armed Forces has recruited severely disabled Canadians into its military. I've confirmed it with folks on the ground in Saint Jean, the recruit school, and it is, maybe it's hilarious, I don't know, but it is extremely troubling considering the nature of the job, and I cannot wrap my head around this story. So welcome back to the Hard to Kill podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. We're going to be going over Canada's recruiting standards for the military, what some generals have said about recruiting, and what some Canadians are saying about recruiting, but all under the context of how did the Canadian Armed Forces let two severely disabled individuals into its ranks. So let's get started. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you are tracking that every like, subscribe, and bell notification goes a long way to promoting Canadian veteran content here on YouTube. As you know, Justin Trudeau is trying to eliminate the ability for you as a Canadian to watch content like this. So you're going to need to do your due diligence and make sure that you're still subscribed. And if you're not subscribed and this is your second time tuning in, I really appreciate you hitting the subscribe button and the bell notification. It goes a long way, believe it or not. And if you want to support the show one level further, you can go down into the description and find a piece of merch that you can sport at your next barbecue, because we know May 2-4 weekend is just around the corner. Okay, so I want to bring to your attention this story that was sent to me by a friend, that there are severely disabled members of the Canadian Armed Forces that have just been recently recruited, and it's troubling. Now, all jokes aside, the fact that we have folks that are severely disabled being let into the military is so wrong on so many different levels, morally, ethically. I just can't comprehend how this could ever happen. And so, like I said, all jokes aside, this is a serious deal. But it's not only just a serious issue, it makes us a laughing stock. The military is full of degenerates, and we love taking the piss out of each other. What's this going to say about our military once you watch this and send it off to a buddy of yours and sends it off to his American friends and then sends it off to his British buddies? This is going to rock us for years to come. But I have to let the story fly, because hopefully this brings a spotlight onto how disastrous inclusivity policies have become, and the defense of our freaking country is on the line, and we're letting in people with severe disabilities. I can't wrap my head around this, and nobody that I've talked to can wrap their head around this. So let's look at the baseline standard and how it's been eroded, and then we'll get into the actual text messages that I received and follow up with that. So first things first, you may be tracking, you may be not, but the Canadian Armed Forces has been reducing its recruiting standards for a while now. So from this article that I just pulled up here from the CBC, we're seeing a dramatic reduction in the not only the amount of people that are joining the military, but we have a dramatic increase in the amount of people leaving the military. I'm not going to get into the full reasons why. That's a whole other post. I've talked about it before, but ultimately, folks are scrambling at the recruiting centers. They're ditching aptitude tests for some applicants, and we'll start accepting recruits with medical conditions. Okay, so this was in March 13th. So now my curiosity is piqued. Is the reason why folks that have severe disabilities a result of this policy? So if we just scroll down a little bit further, the military has dropped its aptitude tests from the application process for dozens of jobs and plans to start accepting recruits with pre-existing medical conditions. Trial efforts meant to boost Canadian Armed Forces' dismal recruitment numbers. Brigadier General Krista Brody, who we'll talk about in a second, the commander overseeing military recruitment, said that the new trials are meant to test out possible solutions as CAF continues to lose more people than it brings in. Okay, so that's really important to know, right? Like, it's losing more people than it's bringing in, and that for any organization is a death spiral. If my company, I start losing more clients than I'm bringing in, I'm not doing well. It's time to hit the panic button, but also figure out what's going wrong. I posit that the policies that they're using, and that includes the inclusivity stuff, everything that relates to equity, is causing a ton of troops to get out. And that's just from guys that I'm talking to. When you see it as face value, if you're a 19-year-old dude and you want to join the forces, you're like, yeah, I want to kick ass and take names. But you see all these freak flags being flown, and you see the fact that they're letting in handicapped people into the military, you're going to be like, man, maybe this isn't the right fit for me. Right. So that's step one. They've lowered the bar for being accepted into the Canadian Armed Forces. Okay. So now moving on to the next little nugget here is the general that I just mentioned. General, what's her name again? Krista Brody. So her interview here,
do you personally think it's a problem that
is all about standards, right? Standards need to be upheld. And I agree. We need to keep standards high. So let's see what General Brody has to say about all this.
security validation takes that amount of time when you're in the midst of a shortage of 8,000 people that you're trying to recruit as much as possible?
So I'll say, certainly it's frustrating, and and we field those frustrations from from candidates and from Canadians, and and from our own chain of command, all the time. But all of that challenge for very good reason, and at the end of the day, we have to be a combat capable force, ready to fight tonight, and so standards matter, and when we're.
I'll just stop. She said, we need to be a combat capable force that can fight tonight. Okay, whatever. We can fight today. Whatever. Tonight, today, you get the point. Combat capable. Are we, though? And if you're letting in people with severe disabilities, is that combat capable? Carry on.
When you're dealing with sensitive military equipment in a national security environment, those factors are really important. So, so we screen for security for good reason. We screen for medical for good reason. We screen for suitability for good reason. And so the challenge then becomes, how do we do the best possible, process approach to be able to get the right quality output from that process. And so so we're constantly testing and adjusting the system, and then putting resources to where we think we can do it better, and there are many places in the process where we think we can do better.
Okay. Pretty canned response, General Brody. I have to say, I hope there's a follow-on interview as to how you think that reducing standards will increase recruitment, because as a case study, look at the Marine Corps. They haven't reduced standards. And what is the only branch of the American military that has maintained its recruiting standard and maintained its level of recruitment over the decades? The Marine Corps. And what do? They keep standards high. Just saying. Just throwing it out there, General. Might want to check your TTPs on recruiting. Okay, so what is required of you in order to become a eligible candidate in the Canadian Armed Forces? So we have a few things here. Be a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. All right. Be at least 17 years of age, but you can be 16 when you start the enrollment process. Shout out to a good buddy of mine that started that process and is still in. Good for you, buds. The consent of a parent. Okay, cool. Have completed at least grade 10 or 24 credits of secondary 4 in Quebec. So for us Frenchies here. And you need some credits. Okay, cool. So that means you basically need to have a general baseline of, you need to know how to read, do some basic math. You need to be old enough that you can be dangerous and be a Canadian. All right, ready to get started. Where do I sign? Right here. Boom. Okay. So those are the standards. That's it. No mention of passing a medical, no mention of anything other than that. That's your baseline standards. Now, when I joined, you had to pass the physical and you had to pass the aptitude test. So clearly the aptitude test is no longer a thing, I guess. So with that being said, you just need to pass the physical. Or is that gone too? I don't know. Maybe some folks can comment down here and tell me what the deal is when it comes to recruiting. So let's get to the scandal of scandals right now. And we're going to talk about this here, which I posted on my X account. From a good friend of mine, I was sent a text message about what's going on at the Recruit Training Center in Saint Jean. And as the text goes, I teach at Saint Jean. There's a recruit with Down syndrome on the current course. After 5 attempts, they decided to just pass him on his weapons handling test. Another individual who commented on this post, on this text, there's another member there right now with cerebral palsy. Somehow recruiting missed that and accidentally enrolled them. Now Saint Jean doesn't know what to do. I would argue this isn't a mistake. This is intentional. This is 100% intentional. Now, my conspiracy mind goes to the individuals here at the recruiting center are doing this on purpose to bring the whole system down, which I don't know. Maybe there's some individuals are like, look, this system is screwed 6 ways from Wednesday. Let's blow this whole thing up and let these folks in and highlight how insane and ridiculous our military has become. Or it's 100% full-blown incompetence and everybody up the chain needs to be fired. I mean, how do you let this happen, man? You can't have somebody with cerebral palsy doing a weapons test. I failed many able-bodied soldiers on their weapons handling tests. They were fully functional, non-disabled human beings. It's hard for some people that have normal cognitive function. This is so perplexing and devastating to our recruitment efforts. I don't know what we do from here. How do you recover from this? Like it says, Saint Jean doesn't know what to do. Yeah, no kidding. They don't know what to do. What do you do as an instructor? What do you do as an instructor? Seriously, what do you do as an instructor with this? Like, my natural inclination would be to be very helpful and not treat them like everybody else. They have a disability. We're going to treat them like they're the same recruit that comes through the doors. I think this is abusive, man. Letting these folks in is full-on abuse. They don't have the cognitive function. Well, cerebral palsy, they have the cognitive function, but obviously their central nervous system is greatly affected. So with that being said, where are we going with this? Just, a quick kind of reply here from my buddy Mike and our company Voluntold posting a reply to his post about this. It's like, man, the recruit post you made, I'm hearing horror stories from the guys teaching the reserve BMQs too. People with obvious signs of level 1 autism, a few asthmatic members. It's wild. And the reason why that's problematic is folks have posted in the comments on X that, man, I wasn't allowed in because I had a mild allergy or I need to use an EpiPen. So they said no. But they'll let somebody in with Down syndrome? Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. Like a sergeant of mine, they wanted to kick him out because he had diabetes. I wasn't allowed to stay in the forces because my back and knee were hurt. Are you saying that somebody with Down syndrome and with cerebral palsy are more apt to deploy than I was? This is freaking insulting. Like insulting beyond my wildest imagination. And so just to look at what this all means in context, we have a recruiting problem, obviously. This is just from X again, from a post done by Vets for Freedom here. From Blacklock's reporter, documents show the Canadian Forces strength is now 26% off target as more members quit and few enlist. This is a challenging time. You think? you think, but I can guarantee you the solution isn't letting severely disabled human beings into the Canadian Armed Forces. That can't be the solution. Last thing I want to share with you guys is how the military can attract more recruits based on interviews with the public. And this I find really interesting. So it's from CPAC, right, which is the Canadian, I don't know what it stands for, but politics and something. They cover the politics stuff in Canada. So they did something interesting in terms of going on the street and seeing what Canadians think. So let's have a listen, because I think it's going to be really insightful for you.
How could the Canadian military attract more recruits?
Well, I mean, it all goes with, I guess, education and publicity and getting the word out there to young people. I guess the big challenge right now is there's a lot of opportunities for young people for jobs, and they're competing with a lot of other businesses and a lot of other industries. So I don't know, getting into the schools, I guess, getting the word out at a young age that it's and giving them letting them know that when they go through the military, I think they get part of their education paid for as well once they're out. So it's not just, being a soldier. You can be an engineer, do a lot of things in the military. It's not that evident to young people, I don't think.
Yeah, this dude's bang on, man. I have to say, if I could do it all over again, I probably would have gone to RMC. I screwed around in university. I finally got through, but I needed the structure, and I didn't even consider RMC as an option. I don't think most Canadians, unless you had a relative go through, even consider it as an option. Especially here in Quebec and the Anglosphere, it's not an option. So that's one thing for sure. You can become an engineer. Like, these are all the options that just aren't made public. The marketing campaign by the Canadian Forces sucks. It super sucks. And the fact that most Canadians have no idea is one of the problems. And all that takes is taking a fraction of their budget and actually putting it into something that's actually usable and actionable and something that will actually get eyeballs on. That's just my opinion. This guy nailed it.
The process is too long.
Dude, you got it. Thanks, buddy. And this is in Fredericton, don't forget. So this is a military town. So for you folks that don't know about Canadian Armed Forces and where its bases are located, about 20 minutes away is the largest base in Canada. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it is, but it's enormous. It's called Gagetown, and Fredericton is the next quote unquote big city that's next to it. It's not that big of a city, but most people have some connection with the military because they're close to the largest base in Canada.
I hear back from them months and months later, and I think that's a reason why a lot of people don't even begin the process of signing up. I think that's something which stops them.
I would say
yeah, 100%. And what's funny is I joined in 2001. I started my process in 2000, but every step along the way, I joined the reserves. This is before the internet too. I know it makes me sound like an old man. I was getting phone calls just as updates from the recruiting cell. Hey, Mr. Morrow, we're just processing your paperwork. How are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Next steps is going to be this. So expect a call by blah, 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 blah. It was a very good process. I felt like I was just being taken care of and I was joining a professional organization, and that's over 20 years ago. So it essentially took me from the time I enrolled, which would have been, I think it was in the fall, maybe the winter of 2000. I was on a bus and heading out to Connaught to do my recruit training in 2001. So that was 5 months later. I had all my gear, everything good to go, but I was brought along the whole step of the way. So I wasn't in the lurch. I wasn't waiting for things. And I thought that was a really great process. I don't know why we don't have that process anymore and why it takes so long, but maybe the General Brody can figure that out for us.
probably maybe there's more advertisement possibly, because you don't see much of that. And just to show the benefits of it, maybe that would be, because I know there's a lot of benefits to joining the military. I wish I had actually joined the military. So when I was younger,
Right on.
I don't know.
To go back to the advertisement side of things, that's twice, right? People said, I don't see anything. I was just in Charlotte going through their airport. And as I'm walking through, there is a massive billboard. And then on top of that, they have the digital display for the Marine Raiders. Wow. just the picture and the way it's set up and the slogan, I was like, man, if I was 20 years old and I was American, like this would be reason for me to just be curious and be on the website figuring things out, because it just looked cool. It was a Marine Raider with all his gear, looking like a badass. And the slogan, I can't remember what it is. If you're a Marine Raider, drop it in the comments. It was cool. But we don't do that. I've never seen anything for the JTF. I've never seen anything for CSOR. I've never seen anything. And yeah, I know we don't have direct entry here in Canada. It doesn't matter. Get them in the door. Be like, hey, you could become one of these, but you have to go through this. Hell, any of the infantry units, we look badass with our gear on. Put some ads up. Put them in the airports. You get people to sign up. Trust me.
I have some friends in the military, Gagetown, and they've done a lot already to try to attract more recruits and, you know, being far more inclusive and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. Maybe they've done all they can do. Maybe people don't want to join the military.
Yeah, I think this dude's bang on with that too. Maybe you've tried as a Canadian Armed Forces this inclusivity thing. Maybe it's time to say, hey, maybe this is really not working. If you're a CEO, if you're an executive, and let's say you're in charge of marketing, if you have 2 really bad quarters, you're probably getting shown the door. We've had, what, a decade now of really bad recruiting numbers. Look, General Brody picking on you. Maybe it's time for you to step aside. Maybe it's time to clean house. If you keep on failing at your job, you shouldn't get promoted. You shouldn't have the privilege of recruiting Canadians into our Canadian Armed Forces. You should be fired straight up. Find somebody else. Have the common decency to say, hey, I'm not doing well at my job. Maybe somebody else can do it. And in my opinion, it doesn't have to be a general. I don't know why we always put generals in charge. We're at a point now where we need people that are just competent. So maybe there's a captain. Hell, maybe there's a freaking warrant officer that would do a better job. We need to start thinking outside the box. Anyways, next dude, and we're almost done here.
Have a conscription or a draft.
Whoa, buddy. Whoa. Hey. This guy's going a little bit into the depths here. Conscription or a draft? Nah, man, that's not joining. That's you being voluntold to join the military. I don't like that idea. Then you get conscripts. Conscripts suck. You don't want conscripts, right? If you're not volunteering for the position, you're not going to be nearly as effective. We've learned that professional armies are the way to go, unless there's something that's like holy shit, pants shitting in terms of war. Even then, I don't know. I don't know if that's the type of war we want to fight. So anyways, I just wanted to show that little clip of this dude. And then the last clip, this dude here that I'm just forwarding to.
Treating them properly and not disrespecting them like they have been in the past.
But he just nailed it. The way you treat your veterans is also a symbol for those folks that are thinking about joining. That is very important. If the image is, hey, veterans that have something to say that's really important and want to protest stuff, get stomped on by police, get sued, get their benefits taken away, get offered MAID. These are really important things that, in my opinion, result in folks not joining the military. You can't have a government that stomps all over your veterans. On top of that, you have literal military members getting food from food banks and from food cupboards. Other veterans that can't afford to live in the cities that they've been posted to and expect, oh yeah, I'm 20 years old. I think I want to do that. I think I want to join. I think I want a life of misery and disrespect. Doesn't matter how cool the job is. I don't think you're going to get many people joining. So thanks to all those folks across Canada that commented on this CPAC story or this CPAC video. I think it goes a long way to get the general sentiment of Canadians. Canadians, not one mentioned, except for the one dude, he talked about inclusivity. Not one of them said, I think we need to be more open and inclusive. I think we need to let more disabled people in, because that's not something that the general public would ever consider. They just want able-bodied professional soldiers that protect them at night and do the dirty, grimy things that keep a democracy, or a parent democracy like ours, alive and thriving and protected from its enemies. That's it. So I hope that sheds a little bit of light, folks. This was just a story that I couldn't pass up. And so I wanted to get a video out. Mucho rapido. If you guys are tuning in and would like to hear more, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification. It goes a long way. And as always, train hard, fight easy. I'll see you on the next one. Peace. I hate t-shirts that get floppy in the arms after 10 washes. So that's why I created a bunch of t-shirts with high quality cotton just for you, so that you can go to the